Welcome to Princeton This Week in Princeton Vikings Athletics here on BikeNation.org and ESP Media powered by Sidearm Sports. My name is Jason Griefer. Once again, we're joined by Princeton Athletic Director Joe Roberts. And today we have two special guests joining us, and those are Princeton Athletic trainers Josh Horner and Garrett Luna. We're going to kind of talk about kind of a day in the life feature with these two gentlemen right here, how they do things on a day-to-day basis, how things may be different as far as COVID goes, and also maybe how things are as different as we approach the postseason with some of our athletic programs right now. In fact, the majority of them. And we'll get right into it. One of those teams that's about to enter into the postseason is the tennis team. They're heading up to Mason for the GMC Championships this coming weekend, Thursday and Saturday up in Mason. So that's happening this week. Joe and I are going to recap that next week and kind of break all things down with that, plus also the sectional draw. We'll get into that on next week's show as well. With that, also, another team that's learned its postseason draw is the Princeton Softball team. We've learned that they will take on Anderson in the opening round of the postseason with a potential matchup against Mason in round 2 if we get there. But, Joe, let's talk about a special event we had this past weekend. And I know we had Coach on last week to talk about it, and that was the Princeton Softball Classic. We talked about kind of, bringing a bunch of teams in, having a lot of different kind of competitive events, try to make it a fun event. Recap this event for us, and how do you think that the day went, and also your team going 2-1 on the day?
First and foremost, Jason, the weather played a vital role in Saturday's entire day because this campus was packed with activity. But like Coach Black had talked about last week, having that softball invite here where we brought in 3 solid foundation softball programs, and Batavia probably being the strongest of them all, giving the girls an opportunity to play 3 games at home, and where they could really see some time, both giving them a chance to get some bats in, giving them a chance to run some players through, because he kind of comboed a little bit. He put some JV kids in there as well because they needed to see the field as well. And so he spread that out a little bit over the course of the day. And of course, Coach has done this event before at a previous school. So, he had some fun games in it, run the base contest, toss the egg contest, those sort of things, which made it a great event for the girls. And then, of course, as we talked about last week, our sponsors and Wing Champ supporting the kids and feeding them after their contest just made it an all-in-all great day. So then on Sunday, we're holding the Division II district softball seed meeting here at Princeton, and Batavia's coach came in and he was just very complimentary about the event and complimentary about the day. But then he said, but I just wasn't used to my girls playing 3 games in one day. And that was just a lot for them to take in, but it was a great experience. So hats off to them, grabbing 2 great wins, coming up short against Batavia. But we saw some really good things. I was down there for the last game, and we saw some really good things. We got the bat on the ball a little bit more. Our pitching started to come through a little bit, especially toward the end of the game. And so we're starting to see some things come together. And like you said, we can put some puzzles together, finish out the regular season, get ready for postseason.
Let's talk about your boys water polo team. And we talked last week about a big event that you had coming up this past weekend now in the Packer Classic. And we look at how things went. Your team goes 4-0 in the Packer Classic. You also, in the process, get Coach Tamara's his 100th win at Princeton. Just a great event all the way around. I have to imagine, at least from an outsider's perspective, this could not have gone any better for you.
Well, and as we've talked about before, when Coach T accomplished, I believe it was 300 earlier. I don't know if that's a sign of his age or just a sign of his veteranism or what, but the boys had an incredible weekend. We'll start it off on Thursday where we ran JV style format and got a lot of the kids in the water. And then Friday, just continued to increase that competition. And when you have Upper Arlington and St. Charles and St. X and Sycamore and Milford consistently running through your water and water polo, you know that you've got to up your game and be ready to go. And on top of that, Saturday was a great day. And as I was saying earlier, we had the softball invite. We were having the city tennis tournament here. We were picking up a baseball game that got rained out and finishing it. And then we had water polo going on. And Chad Packer, who's one of the officials, who the event is named after his father and what he meant for Princeton water polo, comes up to me in the hallway and he's like, "We're about a half hour behind." And I'm like, Chad, we got to figure out how to pick that back up because we had prom Saturday night.
Yeah.
And we had a prom walk here at the high school. And I'm like, it's not going to be an effect that the kids are in the water having water polo, but we got kids coming for prom and getting ready. But Coach Tamaris did an unbelievable job in that very last match. All of the upperclassmen, they were gone because they needed to get ready for prom. He understood that, and he got a bunch of his young kids time in that water. And I think that's like my theme is we're getting these kids opportunities to participate and get involved. 3 softball games in a day, get more kids in the water. And I think that's how we grow our programs because these kids get to see a chance, they get to play. And that's what they want to do at the end. So even at the end of the day, he finished it out, had a great weekend, bring home the Packer Classic, and let's get ready for regional and state.
And we'll be talking about that in detail on next week's program, as well as a lot of other postseason action as well. Let's get into our featured guests here today, Mercy Health Athletic trainers, Josh Horner and Garrett Luna. First of all, gentlemen, we appreciate your time. Garrett, let me start with you. Athletic trainers obviously have a very unique job in trying to keep everybody as healthy as possible, as ready to go as possible on any given day. Take us through a typical day for you. What's that like when you arrive in the morning or early afternoon, whenever you get to Princeton High School, and what does your day look like?
So typically, we have certain that we've seen, and we have that we had got back. We could only have a limit of 1 athlete per each athletic trainer, 2 athletes per each athletic trainer. So we would kind of have to monitor that stuff as well as keep track of, how many reps and sets, what we wanted to add for new rehabs. And then after that, down to the field, or we go winter, we would stay inside, which was nice. In the fall and the spring, we're spread very thin because we have such a massive campus. We're always doing something. So we would, one of us would stay up at the school for a little bit, and then the other one would go down and get water ready for football, mostly football. If we had girls soccer going up, baseball fields, we would kind of, and then we would stay there until the last practice. After the practice, we would do any post-practice treatment, any new injuries. We'd make sure to log all that stuff, all that information, and we'd stay there until everybody's done. So that's short, brief explanation of how a normal day goes. But in the mornings, if we have any doctors, any student athletes that go to a doctor, we could get a call from our team physician, Dr. Galloway, or his physician's assistant or extender. We kind of talk with them about what was going on, what the injury was, how to proceed with that. And then, we could start going into the school, and we communicate with the administration. And if we see any students, we kind of talk with them. So that's kind of how a normal day goes for us.
Josh, let me bring you in here. Obviously, in any sports season, but particularly since we're talking about the spring sports season right now, there can sometimes be 2, 3, 4 events going on at the same time. And obviously, we can't be in 2 or 3 or 4 places at once. And obviously, having 3 trainers there helps to try and get everything covered as much as possible. So when there are multiple events going on at the same time, how do you guys go about divvying up who's going to be where? And then also how much in contact are you with the coaches whose events you are not at, so that you're up on the same page with everybody else when any kind of situation happens, whether an injury or just somebody needs treatment?
Yeah, so thankfully we do have the 3 athletic trainers. So a lot of times, we just work out who's covering what. But when there are events going on that we try and prioritize. So since baseball and softball are so close together, we can sit, like we have a hill we sit on and kind of float back and forth between. But the coaches know, we'll either send out a quick text, or we'll stop by and say, hey, here's who's covering for the day, whether it's me, Garrett, or Mariah, as well as, quick text, let us know if anything's going down. And then we normally try to prioritize just varsity sports, making sure we're covering that a little bit more than like a JV sport, just to be able to float back and forth. But it really just is open communication between coaches, with parents as well. They always know, hey, can you stop up here real quick before or after the games as well? But normally we'll hit each game, before and after as well. That way they at least know if they need something, they can get us.
So a lot of coordination to be had, and obviously, as you said, communication is key there. Garrett, let me come back to you. Excuse me. We're approaching the postseason for just about all of our spring sports. Some of them already, as we talked about here, already know what's going to happen as far as the postseason, as far as their draw goes. I'm wondering in the weeks leading up to the postseason, or maybe even 1 week out, do you see maybe an increase of students coming to you? Do you have a line outside of your office for kids wanting that extra treatment just to try to make sure they're as close to 100% as possible as the postseason nears? Does that change at all for you?
I think, depending on how the season's going, that kind of dictates how much treatment we have to do. If we're having a great season, it's normally just a few kids. If we're having a bad season, it's normally a long line. But depending on, for the most part, I guess it's pretty, at the end of the season, we don't see as many kids. There's probably a few kids who, we'll see them more likely than not. Just small little things, just trying to make sure everything is right. They feel like they're good to go. And a lot of that too is mental. We do the physical part, and we're also kind of saying, hey, you look great out there. And they're like, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I feel good. And we kind of have to play cheerleader as well. So it's, to answer your question, it's not as bad towards the end of the season, but from time to time it does not look like a very successful team. So
yeah, and that's a fair point there, depending on how the seasons go, for sure. Josh, let me bring you back in here as we're winding down this week's episode. I'm wondering how this has been, how trying to do your job has been during this pandemic, throughout this entire sports season, the fall, the winter, and now the spring. Obviously, restrictions have been slowly loosened as time has gone on, but obviously it's very hard to treat people socially distanced. You really can't try and wrap an ankle or ice a shoulder or what have you from 6 feet apart. So I'm wondering how that's been for you and your fellow trainers there to try to keep kids as healthy as possible, knowing that you still have all these protocols to abide by and whatnot.
Yeah, so when we first started in the summer and the fall, it was a little hard because we couldn't. It was normally staying in our office. If an athlete needed us, they came to us. Unless it was something catastrophic, we'd go to them. But we've slowly worked our way out of our room, being able to go on the sidelines, still working with kids. It's a lot of cleaning, a lot of spraying. We've gone through probably 5 or 6 just spray bottles, not even just the chemicals, but spray bottles as well, just cleaning. And luckily we have a great group of kids that, kind of understand what's going on. Hand sanitizer like crazy, and all that stuff. So we've been able to work through it. There's still stuff we can't do, just to maintain, either social distancing or stuff, but we're still able to get the proper treatment that's needed to keep our athletes going. So it's been great being able to just get back out there, be on the sidelines, working with them, whether it's during practice, before practice, or after practice, just to get the treatment they need to start progressing. So we've adapted. It's been hard, but luckily we've been able to talk to other athletic trainers going through the same thing, and just kind of keeping an open book on what's working, what's not working, to get us through.
Joe, let me bring you back in here to wrap up today's episode here. I'm wondering, from your perspective as an athletic director and trying to oversee everything you've had to oversee throughout this pandemic, talk to me about how you feel like your trainers have been able to adapt and also keep your kids healthy throughout this pandemic. Because as Josh has mentioned, there's still some things even now in mid-May that we cannot do, and yet they're still able to keep kids, as close to as 100% as possible.
Yeah, and Jason, that's the incredible part about it, is the fact that there's still things that they're not able to do, and that can be very frustrating at times. But when I got here and I had an opportunity to meet Josh and Garrett, which is one of the reasons why I had this desire to put them on today, is to let them talk a little bit about what goes on every day and their role, because they're behind the scenes. They're not out in front of individuals. They're the ones that are maintaining the health and safety of our student athletes, and add Mariah into that component, as she primarily oversights on our 7th and 8th grade student athletes. But things that we've been not able to see as much this year as we have in the past, like lunchtime treatments and that type of care, or multiple student athletes in the training rooms at more than at one at a time. It has been so critical for us. They also play an extreme role in the closeness of our student athletes, the trust factor that have put into them. And there's a level there that I certainly don't have with our students right now. But they're almost above and beyond some of that relationship piece from our coaches, because they have to maintain that health and safety of our students every single day. And so a player is going to talk to them sometimes more than they will their coach, to tell them if they're really hurt or bumped up or bruised up or just not feeling good, or what that case may be, before they go to the coach. Because a lot of times, the coach, they'll say, "Coach, I want to get in, I want to play, I'm okay." But Josh and Garrett, they take that to the highest level of safety and precaution to make sure our kids are in maximum potential and ready to go for the field.
Well, and the good thing is throughout this entire school year, fall, winter, and spring, I should say, we've not talked about a lot of injuries, significant injuries to any of your programs. So, and that's a credit to these two here, and also to Mariah, your third trainer there as well. But a great look inside how things go behind the scenes as far as a training perspective. My thanks to Josh Horner and Garrett Luna, and also Joe Roberts, once again joining us for This Week in Princeton Vikings Athletics here on VikeNation.org and ESP Media, powered by Sidearm Sports.